Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we've got another impulse buy. So this is a Tamyia Mercedes 8150, I want to say, cargo or box truck. And this will be the second Tamyia truck we've had on the channel, and soon to be the only Tamyia truck on the channel. Why I'm saying that is this is going to be my replacement for the Grand Hauler log lorry I built a while back. Main reason why is I'm having a little bit of a shake up and a tidy up, and I love the log lorry, but I've only used it maybe once or twice, and it takes up a lot more room than I anticipated, and I kind of need the shelf space soon. So I thought, you know what, I didn't want to get out of that side of the hobby. I thought I'd buy something a bit smaller and something European. This kind of suited the bill, and it popped up on eBay, and I ended up winning it. So the plan is I'm most likely going to get rid of the box back on it and convert it into a camper. And when I say convert it into a camper, I am planning to do almost similar to what I've done with the log lorry and convert it into four-wheel drive. So I've got a front axle for it already that's come out of the log lorry. I'm also most likely going to lift it up a little bit, so it can be mixed use. I know I'm going to get flack again for saying, oh, I want to off-road this, but I kind of want to use it as a trail camper. Say if I go out somewhere where it's light. Mainly more walking than it is crawling, where, say like my Tamyia CC01, which is sat up here, where I would take that or one of the smaller WPLs or something like that. But instead I wanted a scale camper rig to take instead. Also because it's different, I don't actually think I've seen anyone do a camper build. But I also want a truck which I can take to truck meets, if you get what I mean. So I'm not going to go too mad with modifying it, but I'm also not going to keep it stock much. So like I said, I'm going to four-wheel drive swap it. So first things first is actually getting rid of this box, which I believe was just sat on there loose when it was shipped to me anyways. And it gives us a nice chassis underneath. When I say nice as smoker's tar covered can be. So yeah, first plan is I am actually going to probably take out the rear axle, swap it over for the locked one from the Grand Hauler, because currently this is still unlocked, and probably give the chassis a clean up and try and fit the Grand Hauler's four-wheel drive converted gearbox into it, and swap the other stuff back into the Grand Hauler. That's a tongue twister and a half. Let's go. Right, so we've got it almost stripped down. I've now added the front axle to it, but we've come across a little bit of a problem. So unlike the Grand Hauler, it appears the front axle is actually a lot further forward on these. So the gearbox I have with the transfer case and everything should theoretically sit here in it. But the only issue is if I flip it over, where it should sit, the front axle actually comes in contact with the gearbox. So I cannot use this gearbox because unlike the Grand Hauler, this can't actually sit higher than the chassis. And if it does sit if it does sit almost the same as the chassis, it sits too low and that ends up being in the way. So I am going to ditch the 3-speed gearbox, which also then solves a second issue, is the steering on this front axle. I've tried flipping it around so it would steer from behind the axle and try and use the original I forgot what these are called, but like they're a pivot point of some form, so it would run off the servo straight there. But the other thing is, stock it ran like that and the axle hits it and it's nowhere near the linkages to line up. So I've tried flipping it around on the back side like that, and as you can see, under suspension compression, that is going to hit the ball joint, which you don't really want. So I'm thinking I'm going to do a delete on this and delete the servo here. And because I am now no longer running the 3-speed gearbox, I'm going to reuse the shifting servo position and put the steering here and put the steering links back onto the front side of the axle and steer it that way. So you may be wondering, alright, how are you gonna power it? The best way I've come up with so far, other than spending quite a bit of money getting a Lesu gearbox, is a reduction box. Probably mount it round about here or a little bit further back depending on how far the motor sits. And then 3D printing again another transfer case which I either will bolt onto the back of this reduction box and sits down low enough, or try and put a mid-mount transfer box there, but then that will interfere with the battery mount. But I'm unsure if I am actually going to use the original battery mount because it is quite open on the bottom, and if that hits a rock or something may puncture the battery, and you don't really want that to happen. So let's get to stripping the rest of the parts off it and start mocking up how the gearbox should go. The other thing, the other thing I'm unsure whether or not motor wise is to go 5:1 or a 3:1 reduction. I'm pulling towards the 3:1 reduction and try and keep it a little bit more wheel speed because the transfer box itself actually has a reduction in it. Alright, enough chit chat, let's get to it. Right, we are back. So I had a little think about it. Like I said, I couldn't get this gearbox to fit without messing up a bunch. So I decided to go with a reduction box. So I thought, you know what, I'll use the same gearing out of this, 3D print a new housing so it would go onto the back side of this and work like that. But I had a little idea. So I think I'm going to do a delete on the original battery tray and move the battery to somewhere else. So I went and stole a transfer case from another truck. And I thought, where the battery mounts, I could put a bit of aluminum across and then mount the transfer case like that onto the bottom of the aluminum. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this and then mark it up and mount this into the middle. That should be a hell of a lot stronger than 3D printed, and it also, well, looks more kind of scale compared to the 3D printed drop box I started to make. So let's get going. And we are back in the studio. So we've got the truck itself. I have actually done a little bit more over Christmas, like getting the motor mounted. I ended up coming across an issue of drive shaft binding with the one which was going down to the transfer case. So I kind of had to make a new transfer case mount. So this now mounts the transfer case with the output side a bit lower and the input side a little bit higher. Another thing I've messed about with, I've actually, can't remember if I've filmed it on camera, but I changed out the rear shackles. I've actually now changed them back, and I have 3D printed a spacer, which, so basically a lift block which goes between the axle and the leaf spring. And then I've also taken out one of the rear pack leaves on these axles as well, just to soften the rear up a little bit. The only thing is, I am not too happy with this setup in general, but without throwing money at it straight away, there's not much else I can do, so I'm just gonna run it as is, and it probably won't be fast enough to do walking speed. So enough chit chat. I'm gonna get the body and the box mounted on it. I've ordered a metal bumper for it because someone has offered me money for the original plastic Tamyia one, and I've also ordered a new metal rear bumper as well because the original plastic one had broken before I even got it. So let's get to it. Right, now with the cab mounted on, I've just noticed something kind of fucking stupid. So with the cab, it being a tilt cab, you can tilt it back. I assumed you could fit your electronics on this, but no. I put my ESC here after, well, you saw me install my radio. That's one thing I like, is my receiver is up tall. Considering I am most likely going to be using this off-road and forwarding, now knowing that it sits almost like up to like the grill height on the body itself, which is kind of nice, I thought you could just put your ESC and then connect it straight down to your motor, so you don't need the ESC tray on the battery mount. No, because on the inside of the cab, where the seats mount, it hits, and if you mount it a bit further back, then it hits the inside of the arch. So I don't particularly want to cut the arches because, well, it stops mud and whatever being thrown up into the inside of the cab and up the windshield, but it kind of looks like a may. The only other place I can think of for even fitting it, if I want to fit it under here, is right there. But that may interfere with the dash. I'm not 100% sure. And because, like I said, I'm not 100% sure I want to keep this motor set up, I may want to actually just throw some money at it and get a proper nice gearbox for it. I don't know if I do put like a plate across here to mount the ESC and other electronics. As soon as I switch it out to a different gearbox, whether or not that gearbox would come in contact with that tray I would put in. But anyways, that is for a future Liam to figure out the issue of. I think I'm gonna now move on to doing the camper back for it. So let's switch it out. So I've had a slight change of plan. I was gonna move on to getting the camper bed done on the back of this, but I've had a few parts arrive while we're away in Japan. So what we've ended up getting is some alley wheels with some, well, they seem to be a lot harder compound than the tyres I have, but they're more scale. So I've got a set of dualies for the rear, and then I've also ordered a set of super singles for the front. I only have a slight issue with the said set of super singles, is the hex adapter, which these come with, pushes the wheels out past the rim. Oh no, out past the arches. So I'm going to have to 3D model an adapter which pushes them back under. But thankfully there's enough offset in these rims that I'm thinking they should work. The other thing which has come is a build-it-yourself rear bumper, it appears, because it's all loose in box. So instead of doing the camper back, I am going to finish off by installing these wheels and tyres and this bumper, and then I'm going to leave doing the custom camper back for another video. So let's go. And we are out of time. So I didn't want this video to drag on for too long, so I'm ending it here. What we've got done, we've got new wheels on it, got new tyres, new rear bumper. We've completely stripped and cleaned it all down. I'm still a bit annoyed about the gearbox in it because, well, I like trucks which roll. That has taken a hell of a lot of force to get that to even roll, because the wheels are just locking up. Anyways, I don't know when the next video of this will be out, because I want to move on to trying to get a few of my other projects done which don't involve throwing money at it. And currently from this stage onwards, I've got the metal to do the camper pack, but I need more printer filament. Then there is the upgrades I want to continue doing to it, so actually get a metal bumper where I don't get fucked over by an AliExpress seller. I also want to get a better gearbox for it, and I also want to repaint it from this horrible smoke covered white and do it into, I want to say like a not a creamy, but like a grey creamy kind of colour. You know what all of them like massive expedition campers are painted in. So that is the plan for in the future. But like I said, unlike the Grand Hauler build where I done it with it over like, I think it was about 3 weeks, this is going to be a long-term project. So anyways, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see ya.